Mavericks win total this year, Ken, sitting at 50.5. Dallas's big offseason move, signing Klay Thompson away from the Golden State Warriors. So Klay is going to start now for Dallas. And I'm really excited about this roster. Under the radar move that they made, in my opinion at least, was bringing in Quentin Grimes. I like Quentin Grimes a lot as a Knicks fan. Felt like he never really got the fairest of fair shakes in New York. Had a pretty extended bad stretch last year, and then DiVincenzo started playing awesome. So Grimes ends up going to Detroit. And then salary dump, Grimes goes to Dallas. I like that for the Dallas Mavericks. 50.5 the win total. Luka Doncic an MVP favorite. What do you think for the Dallas Mavericks, Ken, this season?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because their season last year was in such completely different parts. And if you go by the first part, this number's insane. But obviously, we're going by the second part because Lively takes a step forward. Gafford, PJ Washington, that's the team that we remember. And this number is a little bit more in line with that because you would hope that they could keep defending at the level that they defended with after they got all those players. That was the big thing that changed. The rim protection, the overall defensive mindset. Now, Derrick Jones Jr. not on the team anymore, so Klay comes in, Derrick Jones Jr. not on the team, and it's, to a certain extent, who cares, it's Derrick Jones Jr., Klay Thompson, a sexier name. But to another extent, he was one of the pieces that allowed all of this to fit together the right way, that allowed the defense to be that good. So, with Klay, you gain a lot, obviously. He's still probably one of the best 5 3-point shooters in the league and one of the best of all time. And that's not going to go anywhere. That's skill. But you do lose something when you do that. Are they going to be good on defense? And if it's that they're a top 5 offense, but they're kind of just bleh on defense, man, more than 50 is tough with when that's what you're going into the season
number.
with. It doesn't have to go that way. There are still reasons for optimism. Klay can be completely different when Luka is completely pulling the strings and orchestrating everything, and you just sit on the wing and you shoot wide open 3-pointers and you're Klay Thompson. That's going to go really well sometimes. And Kyrie is drawing attention also. That's going to go really well. I mean, remember, you in your mind's eye, you can picture probably all the times in the NBA Finals, Derrick Jones Jr. was wide open from 3 and missed. It's cool. Well, now that's Klay Thompson. How's that going to go? Not that the defense will play it the same way, but they kind of have to because of the other two guys. So then Lively can take a step forward in year 2. There's reason to be excited, but just it's either the right number or too big, and I can't figure out which one it is.
Yeah, but I think that we're simpatico on this, that if the Mavericks are going to win a ton of games this season, they're going to do it by outscoring teams, and they're going to be a ton of fun to watch. You said with some of these teams, they're going to lose more than the market expects. Mathematically, they have to. I think that could be Denver this year, even if Jokic is just as good. I would only bet the under on the Denver Nuggets heading into the season. Where are you at here with Nikola Jokic in Denver?
Yeah, I feel the same way about Denver that I do about Dallas. You could plug either city or either team in all these statements, and it's basically going to be true. When your best player is blank, Luka or Jokic, there's just a certain baseline with those guys play every game. Jokic plays every game of the season. He's not, this is one of the things that makes him even greater is that he's the best player, but he also plays 79 games a season. He just plays all the time. Luka plays a lot too. When that's true, everything else can be bad. There's a certain baseline level of success that's just going to be the minimum. And I know Luka had the 2 years ago season where they tanked for the draft pick at the end and all that stuff. But you get the idea. When you have a player like this, and maybe that's what separates Luka and Jokic still, it's possible. But when you know that it's really likely there's 74, 75 games of Jokic here, then that's 48 to 50 to start with. That's just the starting point with that. And then it's what else do you have? Because, Jamal Murray has had a bunch of prolonged injured, hot, cold stretches. And Michael Porter Jr. Yeah, Michael Porter Jr. is going to kind of be the third guy who maybe makes a little bit too much, but can win a game for you, et cetera, et cetera. And they're going to, they have the pieces to hit the number, but it's just I kind of feel the same way with Dallas. It just looks a little too high with how good the West is. It's going to be around this number. If you told me they won 42, I'd be astonished. I'd be absolutely shocked. I'd be Jokic had to have gotten hurt in order for them to win 42 games.
Miss?
Correct.
Absolutely, yeah.
So and honestly, Dallas with Luka, to a slightly lesser degree, but pretty similar. Thunder with SGA, I'd probably feel the same way. And I think the Thunder could win a lot without SGA if they had to, but hopefully they won't have to this year. Just should Denver's 52, are they more likely a 50-51 win team? Is Dallas more likely a 48-49 win team? Those feel more reasonable to me, just based on how good the rest of the West is. And it doesn't have to go that way. The Clippers, for example, who we'll get to eventually, could, like, they are a candidate to be one of those bottom out teams. So like if Kawhi misses games and, you know, Victor Wembanyama doesn't develop at the rate and the team doesn't develop at the rate that everybody thinks and they're just bad again. Okay, now you got your two teams, and then maybe you get an injury from somebody else, and now all of a sudden, you know, whatever, something happens, and, you know, there are enough wins, but you can't start the season thinking that's going to happen, and you don't know who the teams are, and these could be the teams. Dallas and Denver could be the teams that have an injury, so under if I had to. Dallas, I think I like the under just a little bit more, only because, like, depending on Clay to be a certain level and depending on Kyrie to be a certain level is still a dicier proposition somehow than depending on, like, the ancillary pieces for Denver, even though I would have questions about both of them.
Houston's win total sitting right now at 42.5, and it's a roster that is absolutely loaded with good young players, whether it's Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, who's being, like, shut down in Summer League because he's been too good. Can't the second-year player out of Villanova. Going to be held out of the rest of Summer League. So Shepherd and Whitmore, along with Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, Amen Thompson, all viable players in an NBA rotation. Almost like too much of a good thing. 42.5 the win total, Ken, here for your Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I think you have to start with, crazily enough, despite all the things going on in Summer League, you have to start with Şengün's recovery. And you tell me he's 100% for opening night, no matter what. I like the over. And this team has a huge problem in that they have, like, too many players to a certain extent, but I do think a role was filled last year, and I know, like, the winning streak and some of it happened without Şengün, and they closed the year super hot, and I understand all that stuff. Şengün's the A player. Like, he plugs into that, everything flows from that. That's, like, how it has to be. And if it's not that, and if it's like, well, he's going to suffer another injury, or he's going to aggravate an injury or whatever, then I love the under. Like, it all depends on plugging him into that spot, and everything flows from that. Because once you do that, everything makes a lot more sense. But if it's like, going into last year, one of the reasons why Şengün was such an appealing most improved player candidate last year, and he wasn't the only one on the team, is that this was a team where we didn't know who the A guy was. It could have still been Jalen Green, of all people, who I think almost definitely is not the A guy.
Yep. But
it could have been him. They have second-year players that are interesting this year. Like, Whitmore's interesting. Like, they have a lot of interesting players. But the A guy is Şengün for me, and I think the team would agree. The A guy is Şengün, and you can have as many interesting pieces around him as you want. Like, he's got to plug into that lead spot, and if he plays at a level he did pre-injury, then they are really interesting. They're actually the team that... let's see, are they the most? They definitely... Okay, so basically their net rating versus how many games they actually won. They won 41 games last year. They were a 500 team, but they actually played like a 46-win team in terms of their net rating. So if you're just kind of looking for, like, well, what is the quality of the team, maybe not necessarily how the results went. Remember, Şengün missed a bunch of the games at the end of the season. Then they're kind of better than this number already before we talk about adding Shepherd and his 20 minutes a game and Whitmore maybe, playing more of a role in the rotation. So if you tell me Şengün, like, and there hasn't been a ton of reporting about Şengün recently, my understanding is that it's going to be all good, and it was, like, more of a precautionary thing even at the end of the regular season. But just, like, I want to see it, and I want to know, and I want the reporting from the camp and everything. That's locked in. I actually do like the over, despite all the kind of too many cooks in the kitchen stuff.
And part of that optimism, I think, has to be, off-court stuff in Boston, notwithstanding. Like, Ime Udoka's a really, really good coach.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Which certainly helps the Rockets.
Played like a 46-win team without the additions and not even the additions, without the year-over-year, like, in the gym all summer improvements from some of these players, which they're young enough, like, you can predict that, like, those should happen. Not like, we hope that guy gets better. Like, 5 of these guys should be better. Like, they just should be. It's like, year 1, year 2 improvements happen more often than they don't happen, and they got a lot of those coming.
I would say I'm ambivalent on this win total. I don't have a strong thought over or under. I do think, like, there has to be a move or two made at some point, either before the season or certainly in season. Like, they got to clear this logjam. Like, they got to open up opportunities. Like, if Reed Shepherd's going to be this good, it can't be that, like, Jalen Green's taking away minutes from him. Like, I think we probably come to this conclusion, right? Like, Jalen Green's ceiling, like, Reed Shepherd's ceiling is hypothetically a lot higher than Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, for that matter.
Sure. And I think to a certain extent, they've kind of not that they've made their bed here, but there were Şengün and Jalen Green were both in trade rumors like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, because of kind of what you're talking about, like the resetting of what the rotation is. My understanding is like they decided to not, definitely decided not to extend Jalen Green, so this is probably it. Like this is the, and then that spot's going to kind of get cleared organically, or before then, but organically. So that to your point, they're on that trajectory. To me, though, that's like the okay. So you want to win a title, or you want to go to a conference finals. All the things you're talking about have to happen in order for that to like who is the title winning B level play like B player on this team? We have no idea. We have no clue who that's going to be. I don't even know if Şengün's an A player on a title winning team yet. But like all those roles have not become established for like winning a championship. They're probably 3 years away from like that being a reality in terms of like roster composition and getting that second or third best player or developing them. But if it's just about win 43 games and this is what I've got and this is how many games I think everyone's going to play, as long as you put Şengün in for a really healthy amount of games, then I think this is a bar that they can clear.
And we'll see. We'll talk about Phoenix later. Really interesting team. And on draft night, we had the Woj tweet, which we joked about, and then like corrected himself like 30 seconds later that the Rockets were interested in trading for Kevin Durant. Right. I'm curious if like that rumor will come back up at some point, because I look at this like, how are the Suns winning a championship? Like, how is that happening this year with that roster? I don't know. Mike Budenholzer, Coach Bud comes over as the new head coach in Phoenix, which will bring back the three-headed monster of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. Beal having just as atrocious a series as you can possibly have, and maybe his performance in Game 4, one of like the worst performances like ever in a playoff game by any player, period, star or otherwise. So Coach Bud, new, the same 3 stars, all back. Win total 46.5. I just like I don't know with this Phoenix team. I don't know what their upside is. Maybe they can win 47 games. It's like is Durant definitely on the team the whole season? What about Phoenix here, Ken?
Yeah, if anything, I'll be honest. If anything, the number just looked a little bit too low to me. It's just there's such a weird combination of things. They're a team that basically was a 50-win team last year. So we can start with that. Like, as much as we hate Beal and the playoffs and the lack of depth and Durant's trade requests or rumors, it's a 49-win team that played like a 51-win team last year, and the number's 46.5. And they're swapping coaches to someone who has had a tremendous amount of regular season success in 2 places. So, like, there is a lot to like about betting over on the number, even if we have all the jokes in the world about Beal and Durant and the mix of everything and Ishbia and all this stuff. It just kind of looks a little low. Now, you know, as Durant ages, and this is true with LeBron too, to a certain extent, like, can you pencil in 60, 65, 70 games? Can you definitely do that at a certain level of expectation for performance too? You know, you start getting a little unsure about that as the age creeps up. So for sure, that's one of the downside things. Because of lack of depth, they just absolutely can't take an injury. And Beal missed a lot of games, especially to start last season, which hurt. So I get it. It's just so weird because it's their reputation is so negative, but they're like they're like last year. They're supposed to be a 51 team. Like, they're a 50-win team, and they're a 50-win team who was one of the worst fourth quarter teams in the history of the NBA. So imagine that. They won 50, and in the time when you win the games, they were the worst of all time. How many games did they win? Well, they actually won 50 of the 80, or 49 of the 82, actually, is how many they won. Like, what a bizarre team to have that be the kind of the combination. Now, if you want to blame the fourth quarter stuff on coaching, which I don't think is totally fair, but you could make that argument. You know, it's like, this is when the game slows down. This is when, you know, maybe some of the sets that you run are more impactful, out of timeout plays, whatever it is, close games. Budenholzer are probably at least pretty good at getting them ready for all that stuff versus, to be fair, Frank Vogel, who I thought was a really good coach too. So I kind of like the over, honestly. I kind of want to wait a little bit on, you know, Durant getting shopped under the radar and Ishbia and comments and the offseason and all this noise. But if the noise goes away and this is just kind of what it is, I actually kind of like the over on this team. I don't think they're going to be the 1 seed, but it just seems a little low to me.
Where would you, so let's assume that all those things happen and you get in a position where you'd bet Phoenix. Where would the Suns over rank for you amongst what we've already talked about today with bets for win totals in the West?
I like Lakers under the most, probably, and Rockets over alongside that. I don't know if I have another one that I like even more. It's like, is it OKC over or this? Probably OKC, but like I think this is a bet worth making when we get there. Like, let's get to the preseason. I don't think it's going up ever. I think if anything, it's just there's a lot of pessimism. But again, like just think about that for a second. This is 3 wins lower than what they actually did, despite all the bad things that we think about them. I mean, that's pretty crazy. They didn't change anything about the team. They just got a better coach, maybe.